Hi, Jess.
Today, we are going to give you our review of Avengers Endgame.
Oh.
I think the day's finally come. We've talked about it a lot in the past few days, and last weekend we got to see it again, which was great again. So we're excited to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But first things first. If you're watching this video and you have not yet seen Avengers Endgame, you need to turn it off and go do something else. Then go see the movie, because you just should, because it's really great. And then come back and hear what we have to say about it.
You have been warned.
So now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive right in. What was your first reaction as we were walking out of the theater and we just experienced this 3-hour amazing movie?
I was just very, very excited and very happy. I keep hearing people talk about it like it's such a satisfying movie for people who are big Marvel fans, and we've been big Marvel fans from the very first days of the MCU, so we've kind of seen all the films come out, and it truly is like, it's almost a cliche now to talk about how it's a cinematic event and stuff, but it really is. Like, nothing like this has ever really happened before, and that's why we wanted to go see it twice, because, like, you know, we'll be able to watch the movie again, of course, but like, this is a movie that really, I think, it's cool to be able to watch on the big screen in the theater. And you know, we've only got so many opportunities to do that, so I was glad we went and saw it twice. But yeah, definitely the first time I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I love, you know, I love references, and allusions and Easter eggs, and there were so many in this, and it was so good. And it was like, normally they're like Easter eggs for like the comics, which is fun, and if you do a little research you know that, but you got to be a comics reader, which we're not really. Not a
ton. I appreciate the comic aspects of it, and like being like, ooh, this part was in the comics,
right? Yeah, so that's always cool, but it was fun that this one was not so much, I mean, it was for comic readers, obviously, but it was really for fans of the MCU, the movie universe, and pretty much all the references were references to all the 21 movies that came before this, and, you know, that just made it so much fun. It was so good, so fun, so epic. I mean, the big battle scene is just the most epic thing you've ever seen, when Captain America says, "Avengers assemble," and they all charge into battle. Like, it's just good.
It just hits you.
It's good. Oh, yes.
That's some good stuff.
It's some good superhero battle.
Yeah.
Another!
Yes. It was delicious. I wanted another. Yes, I definitely remember feeling just the rush of adrenaline, like almost like I had been part of the whole thing and watching it unfold. It was so exciting. And even though they kind of had a really good kind of come down, and how you get to see at the end where everyone ends up, and it doesn't just end with the battle, obviously, but just all of the emotions and all of the excitement and tension and suspense, and all of it just stayed with me even when we were leaving, and we just had to talk about it, and I was just like, wow, that just felt amazing, and it was so exciting. And part of what I really loved about going on opening weekend was that there was all of the big Marvel fans were packed into that movie theater, and so there was a lot of cheering going on and a lot of really intense reactions. It's kind of like being at like a Calvin movie night, like ones we've been to before, but this is in the real theater, and it's opening weekend, and everyone's just so excited to be there, and we're all just cheering on our favorite superheroes, and it was really, really cool. And then we appreciated that we got to see it again in a more quiet theater, because then we got to hear some of the lines that we didn't get. Like when Tony hugs Peter and Peter says, "Oh, this is nice." And yeah, that was really,
hits you right
good.
There.
Hits you right there.
Hits that right there in the arc reactor. It was kind of fun because the one other time, there's been several other times, but the one other time where I've had a really great, awesome, like, audience watching experience of a movie, the last time was when we saw the first Avengers movie at Calvin College. And it was similar, right? It was packed, everybody was really excited, there was lots of cheering, you know, when each of the main characters came in, or when the big moments came in. And I remember being with that movie like, this is the most ambitious thing. Like,
Mhm.
I haven't done something like this before. Like, it's so many characters. Can they balance it?
Right. Just imagine like 4 movies building up to one big crossover movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
But then they
21 movies later.
they did another one, and they just, I don't know, I can't imagine how they did that, but they did, and it was so
Mhm.
cool. And wasn't it cool that we kind of got to be there right at the beginning? Like, Jess, do you remember when we went to see Avengers and we had no idea what was in store for this?
What a time to be alive.
It's such a great time to be alive. So, Aaron, what were some of your favorite parts? I know it was a great movie and there were
Mhm.
so many good parts, but what are some that stick out to you?
Well, one thing I really appreciated about it, I loved Avengers Infinity War. Very well told story, very good. For the most part, there are moments, for the most part, it does a good job of balancing the story between that many number of characters. But you know me, I like a good balanced story
Mm-hmm.
that's like not rushing too much or not skipping over characters too much and things like that. It's just a better told story when you can do that. And I thought Endgame was able to do that a lot better, in part because they narrowed down the characters a lot.
Yeah.
So I liked that that it was 3 hours. I didn't mind. I would have been there for another 45 minutes happily.
Yeah.
At least I could have done another hour,
So
an hour
good.
and a half probably.
So
So they had lots of time. They had fewer characters, and they knew what they had built up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they took their time and told their story well, and loved their characters and gave their main characters, time to shine and time to be sent off well in this kind of conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
which I really appreciated. And I loved the slow moments and like the small moments in the midst of, it's a massive movie.
Mm-hmm.
If it was DC, they'd tear down 5 more buildings in the beginning just to emphasize the drama of it. But, what's great is that they didn't have to do that. They start off with Hawkeye with his family. It's just quiet. We see how much he loves his family and how he's just enjoying the simple life.
And we all know what's about to happen.
And we all know what's going to happen. And then his family disappears. And it's very subtle, but you know what's happening. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And then it goes into the title scene, but not with the usual triumphant Marvel music, but with the
so good.
soft, melancholy indie rock. And then they go to Tony and Nebula on the spaceship, and they're playing paper football because they're just kind of trying to build a relationship and cope with the fact that they're gonna for sure die soon here, and miraculously they don't, because Captain Marvel shows up in a blaze of light, like the Christ figure she is, kind of not exactly Christ figure, but hero figure, savior figure she is, and it's very awesome.
That was one of the things that was cool about this movie, is some of the different partnerships we got to see.
Yeah.
Nebula and Tony, you would never imagine would kind of get together, and both of them are so different, and not the like frenzy type of people.
Right.
And they had to just kind of band together to survive. And just in those few little moments, you got to see just kind of what they built.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really spend a lot of time together the rest of the movie, but it's just kind of cool to see that what happens when 2 people get together and are forced to be together and spend time together. And even just that little football game was kind of sweet to watch, and it didn't feel boring or random at all. It was really cool. And another one we talked about was I think Rhodey and Nebula was a really good pairing. They did a kind of cool thing with how they both have kind of cybernetic parts that weren't part of them originally, and they both feel kind of broken that way, but also they have good strengths that they can use to help the cause. I
really loved how they brought some of like the B characters forward in this movie, particularly Rhodey, Nebula, and Rocket.
Rocket was really good.
Like, if you told me those 3 were going to be a major part of that movie, I'd be like, really? You couldn't go with like Black Panther or Spider-Man or Doctor Strange or someone way more interesting and popular?
How could you dust all those people?
Right. Which is on purpose, obviously, because it just destroys us.
Yeah.
Because we know they all got sequels coming. But like, it was so cool to see those characters kind of come out of the shadow and become significant characters. I thought that was really cool. Also, kind of, not that they are as small of characters, but I thought it was cool to see like Ant-Man and Hawkeye take very large roles in this movie too, which I thought was cool.
Man, Ant-Man, He snuck up on me. He's one of my favorites.
He's
probably.
good.
His parts were some.
Paul
some
Rudd
best.
does very well.
He's fabulous. The tacos.
Yeah, there were so many funny moments too. Just Paul
like
Rudd
they
sitting
do.
there eating his tacos, and then he goes.
And then you're sad because he lost his tacos.
But then it's so good because he lands and he's like, "Who are these people?" There's a blue lady and a raccoon, or a Build-A-Bear, as Tony Stark called him.
I swear, up until this very moment, I thought you were a Build-A-Bear.
And
Maybe
then,
I am.
and then he's like, hi, and they're like, "Where's Big Green?" He's like, "Hulk is in the kitchen."
Making more tacos.
Making more tacos. And then it's so sweet because Hulk brings him tacos and he's just like, "Here, have a taco."
You're like, oh,
just
he
smiles.
has more tacos. And then you're like, oh yeah, there's like life and death stakes here.
But I also love, again, the smaller characters coming forward and getting to know them. But Nebula's just like, "Rhodey, be careful on the landing. There's an idiot in the landing zone." And Rhodey lands, "What's up, regular size man?"
Yep.
It's just so good. Like the little interplays between the
So
characters who've like all gotten to know each other or totally don't know each other and are astonished by each other. Even though we feel like they should know each other after all these movies, but some of them don't.
That's one of the interesting things too about the whole plot is like just how much we know that not everybody knows.
Yep.
I was kind of struck by that because it just feels obvious that like we all know like that there were 3 stones in New York because Doctor Strange lives there and the Tesseract was there, and we didn't know at first that the staff of Loki had a different Infinity Stone from the Tesseract, but now we do, and it feels so long ago since we didn't know that.
Yep. Like, there are 3 stones in New York. Shut the front door!
That was a great part.
So many good, funny moments. Hulk and Rocket riding in the back of that little truck to go get Thor.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Or when we see Star-Lord dancing without the music.
That was a great part too.
And he just looks like an idiot.
Get your love.
So he's an idiot. Yes. Or at the end, "Really? Him? Your choices were him or a tree." Nebula's got some good humor in this one.
Great, yeah.
She's really great.
Some good lines.
And like a really compelling story arc too.
Yeah, she's got a good arc, and I feel like it was kind of in this movie that her arc kind of came to a good conclusion finally. So that was really cool.
And she literally has to kill her past self to like die to who she used to be.
Symbolism.
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So on the subject of character arcs, I want to talk about a couple of the other characters and their interesting character arcs.
Yeah. It was interesting because some of them had very good kind of finalizing character arcs in this movie, and some of them we didn't have as much like satisfaction with how they ended. Like Hulk didn't really seem to move anywhere during the movie too much.
He seems to have moved on well in between in this one and Infinity War. Well, first of all, before we go on to this, the 5-year gap.
Oh yeah.
Like, did not expect that. That talk caught me totally off guard, and I loved how they did it.
That was crazy.
The screen goes black. Thanos is dead. The Infinity Stones are destroyed. All hope is lost.
Not to mention that everything that we've seen in every preview, which we think is like this big epic like build up, is just over in the last like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Yep. That was so crazy.
Yep. It's all it seems so final, so devastating, and then the screen goes black. And then it goes 5, and you're like, 5 what? And they pause, they hold it, and I just loved this. They hold it so it makes you think you're like 5 what? 5 days later? 5 weeks later? It can't be 5 months. Like, that'd be way too long. 5 years later. 5 years? How can they not have fixed it in 5 years? They're the freaking Avengers.
Right! They're supposed to avenge the Earth.
Oh, they're going to be real devastated by that. No wonder Hawkeye's killing people.
They are. They're very damaged.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Ant-Man.
Yep. This is just 5 hours for him.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's a little damaged. He's pretty nervous the whole time and kind of freaking out.
He was in the quantum zone for a little while.
That's kind of just his personality.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyways, back to... I think Hulk did have some character growth. They just didn't have time amidst everything that was happening to show it.
Some of his growth, I guess, was accepting that Hulk is a part of him and fusing them together.
Which I thought was kind of cool because it's not the most intuitive thing to do for a movie. You know, movie audiences want spectacle and stuff like that, and that's kind of what Hollywood tends to deliver. And Hulk, Professor Hulk, doesn't offer as much spectacle because he doesn't do as much smashing, but he offers a satisfying kind of emotionally healthy conclusion to that character arc. And in the end, like, people love the characters in the world so much that we are kind of happy to see that, even if we don't get to see the smashing, Hollywood expects us to want Hulk to do. I think that's kind of cool that they allowed him to have an emotionally healthy character arc that made sense with the previous movies, even if it was maybe less visually exhilarating in some ways.
Hulk smash.
And then there's Thor. What did you think of Thor?
Thor was something. I tell you, what was almost more fun was just hearing everyone's reaction. And then, like, the second time we saw it, you could tell who hadn't seen the movie before exactly at that point when you first see Thor. And everyone's like, oh, what? What? So it was very interesting. It was a big risk, I think, but also, I don't know. I think it was interesting. I think it was a very calculated move to make. I think part of the interesting thing is sort of, take away what makes Thor Thor and what do you have left, and is it worth it, something?
Right. Is the character interesting enough as a character when you take away the muscles and the courage, kind of?
Because we all know some people were there for Chris Hemsworth's muscles, right?
And we did get to see his abs, but we didn't really want to see his abs. Especially when he gets Rocket, like, up in there and, like, rubs Rocket's little furry face in there, and Rocket's like, that is not necessary.
No! You reminded me a lot more of Oaken from Frozen, just like the jolly, Higa, Norwegian type person.
Hello, family.
Yeah. So.
Except, that's kind of the face he puts on, but he's not, jolly and happy and Higa and comfy. He's, like, deeply emotionally scarred. Which, like, we've talked about this. I really liked the Thor arc. I liked that they were able to do that with the character and keep him up. And I loved the fact that, like, so at the beginning he's so frustrated because he could not save the day. He always saves the day. They all always save the day, and they're also torn up. They're all destroyed by the fact that they can't save the day. There's nothing they can do. And Thor, having always solved all his problems with his hammer, kills Thanos.
He aimed for the head.
He aims for the head. And, like, what's crazy about that is, like, that's a callback, which should make us laugh. And it kind of did, but also we were all like, that's not funny.
No.
Like, that's very dark. Like, that's a very dark place for a classic, heroic Gryffindor type to go. Right? That's a very sinister place. And I think, we talk about this, like, it's his failure and the loss of his people and his friends and his family that destroys Thor, but I really think it's also, like, he feels like he is not Thor anymore. And, like, he has compromised those heroic values, and he is not worthy, he is not heroic, he has lost everything. And I think it's that, as much as anything, that makes him afraid to talk about Thanos, afraid to think about Thanos, afraid to go back, because he has just lost everything, and he's lost what makes him him. And I love the scene later when he wants to do the snap in place of Hulk, and he says, just let me do something good. Let me do something good. He wants to kind of make up for that. And I really hope we get another Thor movie, because the only thing I didn't really like is I wish we'd gotten him a little back into a better headspace by the end. Like, it did somewhat. I think it did. Especially when he, like, gets Mjolnir back, and he's like, I'm still worthy. Which was good. That was very good. And his talk with his mom, which was awesome.
That was so good. She's the best mom.
Renee Russo is the best mom. And she's had a lot of kids.
Yours, mine, and ours, anyone?
Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's got the best mom and the best dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he heals a lot in that, but he still seems a little off even after that a little bit. And I hope we get to see him again in Guardians 3 or in a separate Thor movie, which it sounds like might be coming, so here's hoping. I hope we get to see more of him and kind of get him back to a place of confidence, but also with a greater level of humility. I think all of this will have made him more wise and humble. Which we have kind of seen, like, especially I think we saw it in the very first one, of course. It's been kind of his character arc all along, but I think especially in Ragnarok when he really loses pretty genuinely a number of times. I think he grows a lot there, but then it all kind of turns into rage and revenge and pain in Infinity Wars, and then he channels that to a very dark place at the end of Infinity Wars and beginning of Endgame, and that's what really kind of messes him up. So I I liked it. I thought it was very compelling. I hope we see more of Thor because I feel like that story arc is, like you said, I think Captain America, Iron Man have kind of conclusive story arcs. I don't think Hulk and Thor do.
Right.
Entirely. Especially Thor.
Yeah. Thor's had kind of an up and down arc the whole time. It's been interesting. From, arrogance and humility and then up and down a couple of times. So that's been very interesting. Yeah, I definitely really, as much as, it was really sad to say goodbye to some of our favorite characters, the main bros of the whole thing, Iron Man and Captain America, they had some really, really good arcs. I really liked kind of how they ended, except for I wish Tony didn't die because it was sad. And the cheeseburgers are sad.
Your dad liked cheeseburgers too. I'll get you all the cheeseburgers you want.
Okay. Little Morgan Stark.
So cute. Yeah, let's just mention Morgan Stark. Like, yes, please. Like, yes, they please and thank you. Like, that was awesome. Like, I did not expect Tony to make such an emotionally mature choices to settle down, get married, and have a baby, and then make responsible choices with her in mind. But I'm so happy he did.
Right.
It was wonderful.
It's almost like it's all worth it.
Yep.
That they had to wait all that 5 years.
Yep.
Maybe not quite, but she's adorable. And I hope that we get to see a little bit more of her or hear more about her and how she's doing and stuff.
Well, Cassie Lang's all grown up, so we have an opening for a new resident adorable little girl.
Ooh, yeah, that's true.
Cassie Lang is mysteriously old after 5 years. I seemed a little, maybe not quite. Right, maybe she's just tall for like a 15-year-old.
Yeah, probably. That's probably the case. That was such a great moment, though. I liked that when he's like looking, and it's so unexpected that Scott Lang is looking at all the names and praying that he doesn't see his daughter's name on the list of the dead, and he then sees his own name, and he's like, "What?" And then you get to see Cassie have the moment that so many people probably wish they could have, where suddenly her dad knocks on the door and he's there.
Well, and it's such a good subversion too, because we, like at the beginning, we have this intense dramatic irony and dread, knowing Hawkeye's just about to lose his family. And we can only assume when Scott comes back that, of course, and we know he lost a lot of people that are important to him. We saw that at the end of Ant-Man and Wasp. But we just assume, he's going to have to go save Cassie. Like, that's going to be the story, kind of like it was with Hawkeye and everybody else. But it's a cool subversion and the first glimmers of returning hope that we see in the story, that he gets to see Cassie and hold her.
Yeah, that was good.
But then he still has to go save Hope and Hank and everybody, so...
Yeah.
Thank you to the real hero of the movie, the rat who stepped on the button.
all would be lost except for that one rat. We can't leave out probably my favorite part in the whole movie, which is the moment when Thor is at his last legs. Thanos is pressing the axe into his chest, and you see Mjolnir just start to shift a little bit, and you're like, oh, is Thor gonna grab it? And then Captain America picks it up and wields it just like he's a pro.
I knew it!
Yes, and Thor says, I knew it, and...
The audience said, we knew it, we saw you in Ultron. Cap, we knew you could pick it up, but you were too nice to make fun of Thor in front of your friends.
Yep, we knew you were worthy. And in the first time we saw it, there was so much cheering the whole time that he was fighting with that hammer. It was so, so cool. I loved that.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff with Cap. Cap never saying die. He can do this all day. I know. Fighting himself, tricking the Hydra guys in the elevator when you thought we were going to see a repeat of the scene from Winter Soldier, and it was so cool. But then he tricked them. Hail Hydra. Also, one reference to the comics that I did catch. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. But Cap, saving the day, wielding the hammer, reconciling with Tony, and then getting to go back at the end and relive his life with Peggy and have their dance. It's like... It's so good because, like, we knew that Cap would always be willing to lay his life down for everybody else for the greater good. We know that. So, surprise, in the end, the one who gave up his life long ago and has done it a million times and would happily do it again is rewarded with the thing he thought he'd never have.
Yeah.
That's a really kind of cool, kind of a grace thing, right?
Yeah.
If you have your priorities in line, in unlooked for ways, you may even just get the thing you have to give up, or maybe not, but at least, grace will be extended. And kind of the abundant grace at the end is extended when he gets to have the best of both worlds. He did the right thing. He can feel comfortable that he made the sacrifice play that he should have, and, not for any selfish reasons, not with any hope of surviving. But even so, he still gets that long-awaited reward that he never thought he'd have. And that's just kind of a really beautiful way to end.
It's really sweet because I feel like in every movie, it always comes back to Peggy. He's got that little compass with her picture on it, and he always is looking at it. And even when he kind of tries to go out there some more and try to move on, and at the beginning of the movie, he's talking about moving on a ton, but then he gets to be with Peggy in the end, and it's just so sweet.
Yep. I also just like that the movie ends with them just softly, quietly dancing. Like, and again, like, this movie's ability to be the biggest, one of the biggest blockbusters of all time, probably will be the biggest blockbuster of all time soon.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. We're coming for you, Avatar. But at the same time, it begins with a small, quiet moment that's still powerful, and it ends with a small, quiet moment that's still powerful, and it's full of small, quiet moments that are still powerful.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Man of Steel tearing down every building in New York, in Metropolis. For spectacle, it's like every moment is there for a reason. And it can do that because it's got 21 movies worth of mostly goodwill. Hulk.
Yeah.
We
don't talk about
that one. Mostly goodwill to build on, and we just trust the characters, and we're happy to sit for 3 hours through all that. Oh, we should talk about the ladies.
Yes, the ladies. They were great. There was a lot of them, and that was very exciting. Especially because we had to wait so long for a Marvel movie about a woman. And that was really great. I'm expecting more. I don't feel like, even with the Captain Marvel movie and with all the great, moments with Captain Marvel in Endgame, I'm expecting more from her still, a little bit.
Definitely.
But it was a really good intro and a really good teaser, and it was really cool to see her finally take her place in the Avengers, and kind of them all get to know how awesome she is. It was interesting how we kind of all met her before any of them did, and the moments when they were like, hey, who do you think you are, and are you really that awesome? And she's like, yeah, I am that awesome. So that was pretty exciting.
I just carried this freaking spaceship across the universe for you. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Also, I'm the only one who went totally toe-to-toe. Well, me and Scarlet Witch were like the only ones who totally went toe-to-toe with Thanos and basically beat him if he didn't cheat.
Those amazing women. Yeah.
Like, I think earlier, who is it? I forget, one of the male heroes just before, like, the fight with Captain Marvel is fighting Thanos and is, like, doing all right, but then Thanos does, like, a headbutt thing and, like, knocks him to the ground. And then he's fighting Captain Marvel, and he does exactly the same thing, except she doesn't even flinch when he does the headbutt. She's just like, nope, sorry, that's not going to work on me.
And you can see his surprise, which is so amazing. So great. I love it.
Also, I just love the moment. Also, of course, Peter Parker is... Tom Holland as Spider-Man is the best.
So precious.
But he's like holding the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's like, hi, I'm Peter Parker.
And she's got like the cool aunt vibe of like, hey, Peter Parker, got something for me? And I just love it.
And then there's the great shot of all the ladies showing up to carry it. But of course, the real female star of the movie is Black Widow.
But we will see her again. I'm quite confident of that we'll see her in a solo Black Widow movie. There's been so much talk about that for years, honestly. And I think we finally got confirmation that it's going to happen. So that's pretty good. But yeah, she was pretty awesome. And it was interesting to see, kind of her... I mean, her arc was pretty simple, but it went from her kind of being in denial and just trying to hold it all together, but barely, and trying to keep up going with the Avengers, even though there was not much left of them, and not really living her life, to doing the opposite of Steve, I guess, and giving up her life because the Avengers are her life and they're her family. And like she said, she has nothing. She feels like she has nothing without them. So It was really beautiful, and I just liked that whole scene. It was kind of interesting because we knew what they were going to find on Vormir, but
the tremendous dramatic irony as they're flying to Vormir.
Yeah,
and it's like lighthearted, like Hawkeye's like, it's a long way from Budapest, and we're like, but no, he's not coming back from this place.
Yeah, so I was initially really, really holding out hope that if there was some loophole, that if they like both sacrificed themselves, that like then there would be some kind of loophole and they would both make it out, but that's not reality. I mean, I guess getting emails from a raccoon isn't reality either, but it's just, it makes a lot of storytelling sense that one of them had to sacrifice themselves, and it doesn't make sense for all of them to survive, and even for as many of them as did survive to survive. So
I think without some of the main characters, especially some of the original characters laying down their lives, it wouldn't have meant as much. Like, not that you want to lose those characters, but it shows the depth and importance and finality that Tony and Natasha and Vision and Gamora genuinely did lay down their lives, and it's not just like, oop, comic book, we fixed that.
Oh, ta-da.
Nothing has consequences. It's like, real life has consequences, and real sacrifices matter, and you don't just, whoop, we fixed it.
Yeah.
It's got some depth and meaning to it, and I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I just like that scene of, like, you didn't know who's going to end up being the sacrifice maker, and it was just so cool to see their friendship and how much both of them didn't want to, give up the other. And that's like, Greater Love has nothing like this, that one would lay down his life for his friends. And that's definitely Hawkeye and Black Widow. That's them. And just seeing them kind of fight each other for the fact of, the chance to sacrifice them for each other and for the team. And that was just a really sad moment, but a really interesting and a really kind of satisfying, and I don't know, it's a very confusing and very emotionally conflicting moment.
Yeah. I had something I don't think we've talked about this yet. I had something pointed out to me the other day that despite the fact that they're best friends, in the movies we see them together, they spend a lot of time fighting each other.
That's true.
Because he's mind wiped in the first Avengers movie, because they're on opposite teams in Civil War. Like, and they always talk about, like, I don't want to hurt you and stuff, and like Hawkeye is like, you're pulling your punches and stuff, and there's a certain amount of almost lightheartedness between them in Civil War, but still serious. So it's kind of interesting how that kind of parallels those fights. Like, their friendship has involved fighting for each other and with each other, but always because they care about each other and because they care about the greater good, kind of, and they're still friends despite that. Like, I thought I didn't really think about that in the 2 times we watched it, but that's interesting. It does kind of harken back to those 2 moments. Also, of course, just the fact that Natasha chooses to forgive Clint right away. Like, he goes down a very dark path as Ronan, killing people, and you can understand where that pain comes from, but it's evil, it's wrong. And she makes the call to forgive him immediately, and he deals with a lot of guilt throughout the rest of the movie, feeling like he's irredeemable. Which is exactly how she felt when she was a Russian spy and he was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and he did the same thing. He decided to spare her and give her a second chance. And now she kind of gets to fully repay that by sacrificing herself to save this broken, fallen man, this former hero who's become a monster, in order that he can be redeemed and go back to be with his family. Yeah.
And his family, like, that made a big difference. Like, it would have been so sad if he had never seen his family again after all of that.
Well, she sacrificed herself to save his family. Him sacrificing himself would be to save his family, but also to lose his family. And, like, she's losing her family, of course, too, but her family is gone no matter what if somebody doesn't make this sacrifice. I think it's more powerful.
And I've heard it said about, back to the moment with all the women, that someone said that they weren't sure they liked that part because Captain Marvel's got it. She didn't need backup because she's the most powerful one there. But it was just cool, I think, to see all of the women who are characters in the MCU. There were a lot of them, even though not that many of them have a solo movie. So many of the movies that they're in are about men. But there's a lot of really cool women characters, and you almost kind of forget just how many there are until you see that moment, and it was really, really cool.
Well, and kind of like how Captain Marvel is in large part a movie about female empowerment against masculine oppression. That moment's kind of a direct acknowledgement of female empowerment.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I think, problematic that Black Widow is the only original Avenger, one of the few main characters in this movie who's a woman. But despite that, they still, it's clear, I think it's female empowerment has become more important and more central over the years with characters like Peggy Carter and Captain Marvel and stuff, and I hope we will see it become increasingly more important.
Yeah, but initially, definitely when I first saw the movie, I was so excited at that part. It was really, really...
And of course, just got to talk about the amazing when Thanos is about to snap at the end, and he's like, I am inevitable, and he's so confident, and it's going to destroy them all. And then it's snap. What's going on? Where's my stones?
He was so confused.
And Tony Stark is just like, yeah, I am Iron Man. Boom. Just the callback to the original movie, and one thing from a Christian perspective, I would say problematic about the Marvel movies is it's very humanist. Like, the power resides in humans. Like, at the end of the day, it's not super-powered magic. As Thor says, you're very earthy, Hawkeye, but we're dealing with space magic, yes. And of course there's lots of space magic, but even when Thor says that, it kind of mocks space magic a little bit, and there's all this crazy stuff, but at the end of the day, what saves the day always in a Marvel movie is human intelligence or human caring or human will. It goes back to humans. And there's a lot of good about that love and sacrifice and change and courage are usually what's most important. But, so I would criticize that a little bit because I don't think humans are that capable of saving ourselves or quite that good, maybe. But at the same time, that is what the MCU is about. And it's and Iron Man's the original. I mean, he's literally the self-made man. He made himself a man of metal, an Iron Man. And, he doesn't have any superpowers or even any super soldier serum. He made himself. And in the end, he's the one that saves them all. He started it all. He ended it all. He saves them all by being who he is, by using his intelligence and creativity to realize he can just take the stones rather than taking the glove, and Thanos won't see that coming.
You didn't see that coming?
Too soon. To the original, actually dead Avenger.
So, is there anything else we have to say?
I loved it. It was amazing. It was so good. I liked pretty much everything about it. Very few problems, lots of love. I want to see it again, even though I've seen it twice.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it again and again, even though it's 3 hours long. So, Jess, hope you enjoyed our review. Hope you enjoyed seeing Endgame, and hope that we can talk about it together sometime soon. That would be cool. And congrats on your marathon. That's very exciting.
Woo!
You're at 5K. And
you are the real superhero.
We love you so much, and we'll see you on Monday.